Hello and welcome back to the Littlest Sewing Room. Good to see you all again. Today I'm going to give you a beginner's guide to using the Singer 319K. Now I will say at the start of this video, this machine is running a little bit slower than what yours probably does. She's getting ready for a new motor, the poor old girl, but for the purpose of this video, she'll be okay. So I know when you first get a 319K, you can look at it and think, oh my God, what have I done? This is scary. There's so many bits and bobs on this. What do they all do? Don't panic. It's fine. You got this. Okay. Yes, these piano keys at the top, as we call them in the trade, they can look quite scary. And then obviously this dial here. And what does it do? What do all these things do? That's what this video is for. I'm going to talk you through every single key feature on this machine and show you how we use them. So the first thing we're going to take a look at is some of the additional items that may come with your 319K if you're very lucky. The first up is these little black discs. Now these little black discs are pattern cams. So you would attach these to the machine and then they will give you different pattern stitches. Now the 319K has 5 built-in pattern discs, okay, and then it also came with an additional 24 pattern discs. Now you can still purchase these either individually or in a little box, and they are quite pricey. So if you get a full set of cams with your machine, celebrate, because that's absolutely amazing and quite rare to get. Okay, normally they get sold separately. So yeah, so you may get a full box of pattern cams, you may get just a few, but hopefully you'll get some of these nice little black discs that can give you additional pattern stitches. The next thing you would hope will come with your machine is some bobbins. Okay, so if your machine hasn't come with bobbins, don't panic. Yeah, this machine takes L-class bobbins. Okay, the L-class bobbin is also common with the Singer 20U. So if you find you need to order bobbins, just go on eBay or somewhere like that, search for L-class bobbins or Singer 20U bobbins, and you'll be able to get some bobbins. I've got a couple of additional presser feet here with this machine. So I've got a hemming foot for doing sort of quite sheer or fine fabrics. And I've got a zipper foot, obviously, for inserting zips. If you're lucky, you may also get one of these. Now, this is the first one of these I've actually seen, and I've restored maybe 4 or 5 of these machines so far. And this is a twin needle. They did a twin needle for this machine. It does have twin needle capacity. I may have a play with that later. We'll see how this video goes. But yes, it does have twin needle capacity, so you may get a twin needle. I don't know how old this machine is. This needle is. It looks a bit battered, to be fair. So we may have a play with that later, or I may save it for, posterity. Hopefully you will also get these 2 additional plates. Okay, so this is your darning plate. Please remember, if you choose to use your darning plate, so Freemason embroidery and obviously darning garments, to not have your machine set into zigzag. As you can see, someone's done that in the past on here. It's damaged the plate and probably snapped the needle as well. When you use your darning plate, you should use straight stitch only. This additional plate has slightly different margin markings on it to the other plate. The other plate works in 1/8 of an inch, whereas this just is 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then it's got an arrow to show the direction that the fabric will be feeding in. So the other thing that you want your machine to come with is also a bobbin case. Now, I run modified bobbin cases in my Singer 319s. So this is the newer modified bobbin case. And as you can see, it's got quite a large scallop shape at the back. And this means I can run universal needles in my machine. Okay, so I can use the general sewing machine needles that we find anywhere currently for sale in this machine, because the Singer 319K was designed to take a particular type of needle that is actually now really, really hard to find and not very common. And if you do find them, they're extortionately expensive and they're very limited in the size and type. So by running a 319K with a modified bobbin case, you can pretty much use any needle that is commercially available today for a domestic sewing machine. This is the original bobbin case that came with this machine. As you can see, it doesn't have such a large cutout, and if you look closely at this particular case, let me see if I can focus you a bit better. It has got damage on the edge of the case where someone's tried to use a universal standard sewing machine needles that are available today in it. So you've got two choices, okay? You can buy a pre-modified bobbin case like I did with this one, or if it comes with one of these older style machines and you're pretty handy with the Dremel, then you can cut a small scallop shape out of this piece here, and then you've modified your bobbin case so it can take standard sewing machine needles. But either way, having a bobbin case, very, very useful with these machines. In fact, obviously, state the obvious here, it's not going to run without it, is it? You know, duh. So now we've covered the additional pieces that may come with your machine. Let's look at the machine itself and go through everything that's on here. Okay, so I'm going to start at the back. So these piano levers here that can seem really quite intimidating, these are actually your built-in pattern cams. So if you have a look from the top, see here, each one of these little levers has a design on, and that corresponds to the pattern cam that is on the other side of this plate. Okay, so you've got your normal zigzag, you've got a multi-stitch zigzag, you've got like a U shape, like an arrow shape, and then like an oval. This lever here is for when you fix your pattern cams on that come separate with the machine, because we would fix them onto here, okay, and then this lever would engage the pattern cam, and this little bit here, ridge here, will follow the contours that are on the cam, move this plate up and down, because as you can see it moves, which then swings the needle and makes the pattern on the fabric with the stitches. So the next thing we're going to look at is this dial here. Again, it can look really quite intimidating. It's big, a big knob on the side of the machine. Sometimes you'll find there's a little screw here, which is currently missing on this machine. It's called a bright screw. But what these levers do is really quite simple. So this lever here will set the width of a stitch. So whether you're using your zigzag stitch or any of your other pattern cams, you can set how wide you want that to be. So if you leave it on naught, you're still going to get a straight stitch even with your pattern cam engaged. And then obviously as the little lines go up, the increments, the width of the stitch will increase. And what would happen is if the bright screw was fitted here, you would set your width and then you can tighten the bright screw to help hold that in place. It will work without bright screw. It's not the end of the world. Bright screws, again, for this machine are quite hard to find. You will get them occasionally and they can be quite expensive. You know, as I say, the machine does run without it. It's just a nice little thing to have sometimes. The next lever that's on this dial is this one here. And what this one here does, it sets the position of the needle. Okay, so when this lever is in the middle, our needle is in the middle of the presser foot, yeah? If we move it to the right, our needle will move to the right. And if we move it to the left, our needle will move to the left. Okay, so that's just if you need to change the position of your needle when you're sewing, whether it's for a narrow seam or whether you want to do a stitch down the side of something, you put a wider seam on it or whatever, that just sets the position of your needle. So the next thing we're looking at is our stitch length selector. Okay, so if it's a 6, that means we're getting roughly 6 stitches per inch, I believe. And it will go all the way up to 0, which is where you would set it if you were darning. This also is your reverse lever. So you've got your stitch lengths here, and then if you push it to the top, the machine will go into reverse, so you can fasten off a seam or whatever you're sewing. And then you can bring this back down to whatever stitch you had it at before. Now, if you're using a stitch up here and then you've done reverse, you want it to go back to whatever short stitch that was. And you don't want to spend too much time faffing about with it. If you're sewing, you want to do reverse and come back and it's done. So this is where this knob here comes, okay, because this will fix your stitch length selector. So if I screw that knob in till we get some resistance, which is about there, that means that lever's not going to move down. It's fixed at that point. So I can do reverse and bring it back. And then it'll reverse at a similar length stitch as what you're stitching forwards. Okay. If I unscrew this so I can push this lever further down, then obviously when I bring this lever down, it will go up into the reverse. And when I bring it back down, it will sit at that stitch length. And like I say, it will reverse the same distance of stitch as what you're sewing at. Okay. So if you're doing a really short stitch, when you put it in reverse, it's only going to move a little way. If you're doing a longer stitch and you do reverse, it's going to do a longer stitch in reverse. Very simple, very easy to use. So now let's come to the front of the machine. Again, it's pretty simple, pretty self-explanatory. This knob here at the very top, I don't know if you can see very well, that does your presser foot pressure. So you may need to adjust that depending on what kind of fabrics you're sewing, whether it's light fabrics or heavy fabrics. This is your tension unit. Obviously set it so that you're getting a very nice stitch. I find with these machines, if it's set anywhere between 4 and 6, you should get a nice straight stitch. You may need to adjust it slightly for your zigzags and your decorative stitches. This is your needle clamp. Obviously you've got your needle in place, and then you've got your presser foot at the back, and then you've got your feed dog plate. I have done a separate video on threading this machine. It's pretty easy and self-explanatory, really, threading this machine. The one thing you've got to be careful of is the fact that you have to lean the machine back in order to fit the lower bobbin case. Please be careful of fingers, because a few years ago I did actually manage to break my thumb by dropping my machine on my thumb whilst getting the lower bobbin in. I don't want to have any reports of people breaking their thumbs. Please be careful. Okay. So yeah, so there is a separate video for threading and things. The only other thing you might want to think about on this machine or ask questions about, well, there's this contraption here. This is for winding your bobbins, which is very simple. I will do a short video on that later. So let's get started with using this machine. First of all, I'm just going to show you a really simple straight stitch. Okay, so I haven't got any of my built-in cams selected. I have my needle set in the middle. I have my stitch width set to 0, and I'm actually going to be using one of the longer stitches that you can get in this machine. Okay, so obviously you get your fabric, place it under your presser foot as you would any other machine, put your presser foot down. I always give the hand wheel a little bit of a turn to engage the needle first. The reason I do that is it stops the needle unthreading itself. And then we just stitch a nice straight stitch. Like so. As I say, this machine is running a little bit slowly today. Normally they will work a little bit faster than this. When you get to the end of your stitch, you lift this lever up at the back and run back over your stitch to fasten it off, and then forwards again, like so. And then we just pull our garment out from underneath the machine. You may need to turn the hand wheel slightly. Cut your thread, and that is the straight stitch on this machine. So the next thing we want to do is we want to select a zigzag stitch. Very simple and easy to do. We come up here to our cams, we have a look, and we find our zigzag stitch, and we pull the lever up, so then that cam is now engaged into the machine. I'm then going to set my stitch width, okay, which is this dial here. So I'm going to have a nice wide zigzag. I'm going to set it on the widest setting, and I'm thinking to have quite a long zigzag stitch spacing, so I'm going to set it at number 6. I'm going to set it right down here for the zigzag. So once again, I'm just going to engage my flywheel, and then I'm going to let the machine do its thing. It will be a little bit noisy. Zigzag stitch is always noisy because you'll hear the cams banging and engaging. Stop the machine, make sure the needle is lifted up to its highest point. Lift your presser foot. Let me just give it a bit of a jiggle and a wriggle so I can get it out from under there. And there we have, you see, a nice zigzag stitch. Let's have a look at the back of it. So the tension's not bad on that zigzag stitch. I am using two-tone thread in this machine. So if there are any tension changes I need to make, it's easier to spot, because I haven't done a lot with this particular machine. Though I am familiar with 319s, this machine is fairly new, 319 to me. So that is your zigzag stitch. So very easy to do. And you follow that same process with whatever cam you want to engage out of your built-in cams. So say I want to use the U stitch. I will engage the U stitch. I will set it to whatever width I want. I might make that one a little bit narrower. You have your stitch length. You press your foot down. I always engage my needle a little bit first. It stops the needle unthreading itself before you start sewing. And then you sew, and it will give you whatever pattern is in that cam. This is going quite a shallow U pattern. Let me shorten this. In fact, let me widen that, shorten this. Sometimes you have to have a play until you get the absolute perfect response that you want out of the machine for the pattern cams, because with some of them, if you make it too wide or too long, then it stretches that pattern right out and you don't get that nice compact design that you might need. So as I say, I've just made it a little bit shorter and a little bit wider. Let the machine feed it through. And just needles in the highest point. And I lift my presser foot, pull it out from underneath. And as you can see, I've used the curved cam on this piece, and you get a nice sort of lumpy, bumpy decorative stitch. To start off with, I had it set as quite a narrow stitch and quite a long stitch, and can you see how that lumpy bumpiness has got so stretched out? It just looks like a very wibbly wobbly bit of sewing rather than anything patterned. So sometimes with the cams you do need to have a play to get the perfect response out of the cam design. I'm now going to show you how we insert the additional cams. So inserting the additional cams is really easy. So I've just picked number 23 cam, and it should give sort of a uppy downy diamond shape sort of stitch. What we do is we take this knob off here. Okay, we unscrew this knob and we take our cam and we insert it so that you see this little knob here engages into this groove here. And then we take our screw piece, screw that back on like so. And then this lever that's at the end of your 5 pattern cams on the top, this engages these additional cams. So I'm just going to pull that lever, and can you see it's on the contour of this cam here. Take this out and show you what it gives. So that is the pattern that comes out of that pattern cam. That's the front side. Let's have a look at the back. And that's the back side. Obviously the white is showing up a bit better against this blue felt. This is just a scrap I had, but I knew I needed something a bit more stabilized to get what we wanted out of that pattern cam. Now we're going to look at how we change this plate here, this feed dog plate, so that we can put the darning plate in. So it's either obviously used for darning, or you can use it for free motion embroidery. In order to remove this plate, it's really quite simple. We carefully lean the machine backwards, keep a firm grasp on this machine, do not let it go. If this machine lands on your fingers, it will hurt. And then we tilt our plate up and we pull it out backwards like so. And then to insert our darning plate, we just repeat the process in reverse. So we lean our plate up slightly, There's two big clips on the back that will clip onto the metal frame of the machine. You'll feel it grip, and we just slide it forwards and let it click into place. And then we put our machine down, and now we're ready to do the next step in getting it set up for darning or free motion embroidery. So now I've got the darning plate in place, I'm going to reduce the pressure on the pressure foot. Now normally I would change this over to an embroidery or a darning foot, but for the purpose of this video, if I just use a much reduced pressure on the presser foot, it will still darn. So I'm just going to slacken this right off. You still need the tiniest amount of pressure through your pressure foot just to help with the formation of the stitch. So what I generally do is I slacken it off until it's like super loose, which is we're reaching that point now, and then I will tighten it again by 2 or 3 turns just until I start feeling a little bit of resistance. And then what we do is we put our fabric underneath the presser foot. We drop our presser foot lever at the back, so we engage the tension discs, and then your fabric should be able to freely move underneath the presser foot, okay, and then you will start sewing and it will form a stitch. You can use it with a hoop, so you'll have your fabric pulled tight in a hoop. That's normally how we would do it, to keep the tension. Or you can embroider, just like free motion embroidery basically, or darning onto something that's also pre-stabilized. So really that's it. I mean, from a basics beginner's point of view, you now know how the stitch width works in relation to the cams. You know how the needle positioner works. You know how your needle length, your stitch length works. And you know obviously about your tension units, and that you may need to adjust your tension units. One thing you will find on vintage machines compared to modern machines is you may need to be tweaking your tensions more. Okay, and that's fine. That's the nature of these girlies. And as you get to know them, you know, you will get to know what setting works with what cam. In fact, if you've got all your cams to work through and you want to be really pedantic about things, what you could do is find the setting and what fabric with what cam, and just make a little note of it and maybe stick it on a sticker on the back of the cam, so that you know if this needs like 1.5 on the tension unit with this particular thread. So that's something you can do if you want to work through your pattern cams, figure out what works tension wise, etc. But these machines, once you get to know them, they are actually quite simple. Don't be intimidated by them, and have fun. Have a play. In fact, I'm going to have a play now, and I'm going to see if we can get this twin needle working. So I've got it threaded up. I've got it in the machine. Let's see if this works. Let's have a go. See what comes out of here. Ooh, it's working. It's sewing. It sounds a bit dull. I think it's a bit blunt, this needle. Let's have a look. Let's lift this foot. Let's see what this stitch is. Bobbin underneath. Oh, that's pretty cool, actually. That's not bad. You know, if you've got jeans to hem or something, you know, you could use the same threads. I've used 2 different colour threads here. It's a bit wonky donkey. Let's have a look on the other side. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, tension's bad. Bad tension. If you get the tension set right, pretty neat. Have a play. Enjoy your machine. Get to know your machine. Don't be scared of it. It's not going to bite. Not unless you put your finger in the wrong place anyway. So, yeah, these machines are brilliant machines. They're very versatile machines. You'll get, as you get to know your machine and as you spend more time with it, you'll realize they sew pretty much anything and everything, you know. Have a play with your pattern cams, figure out what tensions work with what disc and the best way to get the best pattern out of your cam, and yeah, have fun. That's what it's meant to be about, having fun. Don't take sewing too seriously. It's about enjoying what you do. If you have any questions, drop me a comment below. I hope you've enjoyed this beginner's guide video, and I look forward to seeing you all again soon.
Subscribe. 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 Subscribe.